Hey folks, good afternoon. How are we all doing? Here's a third video today. I'm over at the Cedar Point Environmental Park near Englewood, Florida. I've actually done a couple of past videos here, but this one is going to be a bit different. So, before I start the video, I want to provide a shout out to a good friend of mine, Gerald Thompson, who actually is an environmental educator coordinator, aka a naturalist who works at Cedar Point. So, shout out goes to you, buddy. Hope this video finds you well. So, Cedar Point Environmental Park kind of hosts a variety of habitats. So like where we're kind of at right now is sort of like a mesic flatwoods, where you get to see the predominant slash pine in front of me, and also the sand live oak, as they appear in clusters. As a matter of fact, I actually mentioned a bit about the sand live oak yesterday on my page, where I posted a photo of it and just gave some general characteristics of the tree. But aside from that, yeah, you can find mesic flatwoods, but then as you go a bit further out, you can actually see a bit of the coastal land, and it actually interacts with the Lemon Bay. So you have a chance to see basically an estuary nearby too. So it's an intimate park, but yeah, it's also, what's the word I want to use? Also diverse too, in terms of habitat that's found here. So we are going on the Denny and Pat Gerard trail, and what I like the most about this trail are these observations. So before I mention with you guys further about this, can you guess what these observations are going towards? Give you a couple of seconds to think about it. Okay, time's up. So if you thought that these might be used for bald eagles, which are common down here, you would be correct. Here it actually gives you a bit of an interpretive sign. So at one point, bald eagles were at one point endangered. Sorry, I had to collect my thoughts. They were at one point endangered because of a known pesticide called DDT. So what this pesticide did was it would weaken the structure of an egg, especially the shell part of it. So oftentimes, the mother, if she went to sit and help incubate her eggs, oftentimes they would get crushed. And eventually, as it got in the 60s, I believe, one of my favorite ecologists named Rachel Carson actually wrote a book called The Silent Spring. And if it wasn't for her published work of this issue, it's possible that the bald eagles right now would be extinct if it kept continuing. And that was really when people started to realize, like, hey, we need to slow down our pesticide use because it highly impacts the biodiversity of a habitat. Now, she called her book Silent Spring because, as opposed to just hearing the wildlife in a forest, for instance, it was instead silent because there was hardly any wildlife left. And that's why she called it that. So there was a reasoning behind her title of the book. Ooh, here's some red-bellied woodpeckers. Huh. But yeah, bald eagles have a very wide distribution. I've even seen, you can see them as far north as Ohio, which is where I originally come from. And even their nests, as it says on here, can be 20 feet thick and 10 feet across. So that's a big nest. And for those of you who may wonder, like, do they always have their white plumage on their heads? No, they don't. Actually, when they are young and they're juveniles, a lot of their plumage is brown on their head. But then give it a few years, at least 5 years, that is when they start to develop that white plumage on their head. And yeah, the bald eagle is so important, especially given the fact that they act as one of the top predators for the food chain. And so essentially they're kind of like equivalent to sharks on land. It's a good way of thinking it. And they're also the symbol for the United States. So, one point to think our symbol of the United States was nearly going to be extinct. But oftentimes, their nests will be on top of these slush pines. So let me provide you guys a little view right here. Let me see if you guys can find it. Give me just a hot second. Let's try this again. Okay. You see sort of like that brown dot right there in the center? That's the nest. Though, from the distance, it may look really small. That's not the case. When you're actually right up by it, it's huge. And usually, as another further note, usually their breeding season is from October 1st to April 1st, so about 6 months. And oftentimes, particular trails at a preserve, they'll actually close so that people cannot disturb these nests. So, my best reasoning as to why that is given that if they are disturbed, the nests, the mothers will not return to their young. And that's the reason why that's in place. But yeah, that's just a little tidbit on the bald eagle. And usually they have a general wingspan of at least up to 6 feet when they're adults. Yep, here's more of that sand live oak. Just a piece of Florida's old wilderness. And here you have a chance to see the Saw Palmetto. That's distinguished by having a rectangular shaped stem. And it also gets its name from the fact that when you touch the stem, there are some sharp points. And that's how it gets its name. But this is generally how big they will grow. They don't grow into mature, big palms like the cabbage palm, queen palm, foxtail palm, just to name a couple. So they generally act as a shrub. And they actually, if you're lucky, you can find berries on them. And they are indeed edible as well. So they are also very valuable for our wildlife, our fellow homies. And then we're also surrounded by a bunch of Lyonias, such as this one, right here. And then I think, based on the shape of those leaves, that's another oak. And based on the shape of the leaf, given that it has sort of a canoe shape, that's how you can tell if you're looking at a sand live oak. This is a young one. This is immature. But that is another feature to look for if you're looking at a sand live oak. Generally, their leaves remind you of looking at a canoe. They're very slender. And they also kind of curve in a little bit towards the tip. So that's just a little bit of tidbit for you. So alright, you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video and learning about the bald eagles and some of the native vegetation. This is a cool place. So, and also forgive me for the length. But as always, Mr. Journey on a Journey always has some natural wisdom to share. It's alright, you guys. Take care. And once again, Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks. Enjoy your Wednesday.